Hello friends, this is Dr. Musheer Ahmad once again with another lecture, that is lecture 5 of business communication, and the topic for today is feedback, functions, characteristics and purposes. This topic feedback will be divided into 3 lectures, and in this lecture we will be covering functions, characteristics and of course the purposes of feedback. So I'm Dr. Musheer Ahmad. Welcome all of you once again. I'm working as an associate professor, Department of Business Administration, Khwaja Moinuddin Chishti Language University. So here we go. Let us understand what is a feedback first. The receiver's response to the message is encoded as feedback message for the sender. The receiver's feedback becomes, in effect, a reversal of the communication process where the receiver becomes the sender and the sender becomes the receiver. The feedback message allows the sender to assess whether the receiver has understood the message and whether the message has had the desired impact on the receiver or not. In case of doubt by the receiver, he may also ask for further clarification of some part of message from the sender. Even silence is a kind of feedback, as a certain message does get conveyed in this process. According to Berha, feedback is a message that indicates the understanding or agreement between two or more communicators in response to an original message. To be effective, communication process should involve the elements of feedback also. Feedback is essential as it decreases the potential and probability of distortion between the intended and the received message. Feedback may be direct or indirect. Direct feedback is possible through face-to-face verbal exchanges between subordinates and the managers. Subordinates may indicate their discontent or misunderstanding either verbally or by facial expressions. Indirect feedback may be in terms of actual results, increase or decrease in productivity, increased or decreased absenteeism and turnover, lack of coordination between different work units, etc. Feedback provides a kind of check to check how successfully the message is transmitted and interpreted by the receiver. Functions of feedback. Now let's get into the functions of feedback. What are the basic functions of the feedback? As you can see on the slide, the first function of feedback is feedback results in improving understanding. It assures the communicator that the message has been understood by the receiver in the same way as the sender intends to. Second point, feedback enables the communicator or the sender of the original message to know whether the audience is interested in the subject matter of the communication or not. Now, coming down to the third function of feedback, feedback helps in evaluating what is right and what is wrong in a particular situation. Now, the fourth function of feedback, feedback helps in giving rewards for reinforcement of desired behaviors. So these are the 4 basic functions that our feedback performs. Now coming down to the next, that is the nature and the characteristics of feedback. So let's get into it. Feedback may be of formal or informal appraisal process telling people about their performance may bring us on a difficult ground. As the feedback is to be phrased, we should be conscious enough to exercise the restraint. A word out of place may offend a person. Therefore, we should know how to phrase the feedback so that it turns out to have a positive impact on the receiver. Our feedback should not generate an ill feeling. A proper observation of performance is required for a proper feedback. The essential characteristics of feedback may be summarized as under in these points. The first characteristic of feedback is personal element. Feedback is based on one's personal evaluation. It may vary from person to person. The feedback talks about the task, but it is attributed to a person, which may sometimes even range from phrasing and framing a person's allegation to name calling. Second point, observation. Feedback is based on the observation of the performance of a person. Therefore, the feedback should depict the factual position. Sometimes feedback is very general in nature. It indicates how we have observed one's performance. Proper feedback is based on actual situation rather than on general observations. We should comment only on those things that we see in making an observation. We should not be prejudiced. We should also try to see the good points in the people and their work. It is very necessary. Third point, detailed and specific. Feedback with detailed description of the event indicates an approach concentrating on facts. Such kind of feedback leads to improvement. Unless feedback is made specific about the lapses in the manner or the methodology or even a personal trait pertaining to a particular area, the improvement cannot take place. Detailed and object specific feedback becomes productive. Fourth point, tone. The tone of the feedback is very important. It could be positive or negative. It could be general or specific. Sometimes it is formal while other times it is informal. It depends situation to situation. A sincere and critical feedback is related to a specific area of the task or the manner of performance becomes very effective for improvement. Solely critical comments are not realized unless until they are constructive. How the feedback is delivered has a lot of significance on its expectations and the resulting consequence. A careless attitude may also affect the performance unnaturally. Now, coming down to the fifth point, approach. The best kind of approach of giving feedback is to facilitate self-critique by asking appropriate open-ended questions. We can get the other persons to give the feedback properly. If the message is given by him or her in the form of a self-evaluation, we have succeeded in delivering the feedback in the most effective manner. The approach in feedback should be supportive and constructive. Now coming down to the third and the last topic of this lecture, which is purposes of feedback. The purposes of feedback in modern organization. Feedback is essential to serve the following purposes. The first purpose of feedback is to provide information about the work to be done. The second purpose of feedback is to facilitate understanding of organizational goals by the lower level of the management. Now coming down the third purpose, to tell the subordinates about their performance, which is very necessary. The fourth, to give specific directives to the subordinates. Now the fifth purpose, to give information about the organizational procedures and practices so that there may exist no confusion at all in the minds of the subordinates. Sixth, to improve interpersonal relationships. So this is all about the first lecture on feedback, which is on the functions, the characteristics and the purposes. So I will be coming with the next lecture on feedback very soon. Till then, thank you very much.